of the East. He controls all the top Freemasonic leaders, and then those leaders in turn control all low-level Freemasonry and other secret societies that may be offshoots there. So the Jesuits control the invisible empire, whether it be the Nation of Islam or whether it be the Ku Klux Klan. It's all Masonic, and so they have many strings to their bow.
Yeah, it's interesting because Aleister Crowley's handwritten works are stored here at the University of Texas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. If you go up to the Harry Ransom Center here, Aleister Crowley's eyes are staring out at you, and they keep his handwritten Book of the Law kept there. Very interesting.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Book of the Law is really nothing more than a champion. He is championing or championing the doctrine of free will.
Right.
And as you know, do what thou wilt, for this is the whole of the law. In his society, thelema, well, it means desire, or actually free will. So it goes right, and it's completely in agreement with Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, because if you look in the index there, you'll find the doctrine of free will, free will, free will on a host of pages. So one of the devil's great maxims in getting men to serve him is to champion the doctrine of free will. In fact, if you see the movie with Al Pacino in it, called the Devil's Advocate, there's a tremendous speech at the end of that movie that Pacino makes as he's playing the part of the devil. And he says, free will, it's a B-I-T-C-H. But, you know, he's championing it as though it's absolute. And so we see in all these satanic, occult, secret societies, they all champion free will.
Yeah, you know, the entrance obligation to the Freemason is that I come of my own free will and accord.
Right.
Yeah. I figured that's why they didn't recruit, because you had to go there of your own free will.
But they do invite. They send out their invitations. They give, like Skull and Bones, they tap you and invite you, but there has to be an invitation. Yeah.
Well, now I see things like this. I was watching with the President Clinton and the Monica Lewinsky scandal. And to me, this was psychological warfare to make everybody lose faith in their American president. And so the next thing I figured that they would do would be to railroad a president into office, so therefore to further the psychological warfare and, you know, totally destroy our ideas of America. And these two things came true as I was watching. And what I believe is that this psychological warfare is there to dishearten us, because first you got to destroy a nation's heart before you can destroy them. Do you think that they are about to destroy America?
Yes, that's been their grand design ever since it was founded, and I believe that they're using America for its last great purpose by the Jesuit order, and that is to have a two-front war. Destroy millions of Muslims, and to ultimately solidify or bring more security to the nation of Israel. And I believe the Jews have a right to their land, and I believe God has brought them back there for their ultimate great tribulation that they're going to go through. But the devil wants Israel there also, and it's known as the Kingdom of Jerusalem by the Pope. And so the Kingdom of Jerusalem is going to be made more secure by the Vatican using American soldiers and military to secure that place by killing millions and millions of Muslims, particularly the Sunnis, because Iraq had expelled the Jesuits in 1969. And so they are paying for that. The Sunnis have been enemies of Jesuit leadership, unlike the Shiites have been the enemies of the Jesuits, unlike the Sunnis and unlike the Wahhabis. The Wahhabis are completely controlled by the Jesuits, by a high-level Freemasonry. So yes, they are fully intending to destroy our country. And as far as the Clinton and Monica Lewinsky issue, I think that was a distraction. Of course, it was evil and it was wicked, but Eisenhower had his Kate Summersby. Johnson had his Madeline Duncan Brown. I mean, all these presidents have had their concubines. FDR had his mistress that died when he died at Warm Springs. She was there at his bedside. I mean, all these presidents have had their concubines, unfortunately. And so why would they do this with Clinton? It's a distraction to get our eyes away from the real issues that are going down, like, for example, Clinton and Gore giving all of our top military technology to the Red Chinese.
Yes, our most favored nation.
Yeah, so it's the very same thing that was done during the Reagan administration, when they had the captive issue, when the captives were released, the very day Reagan was inaugurated. And why this? Because after this, Reagan would not only tremendously arm Iran, he would also arm Iraq for this coming crusade that would be inaugurated in 2001. So they used these distractions, these deliberate agitations to get our minds off what is really happening in Washington and on an international scale.
Right. And it also made us all pretty, well, it's obvious that they're making America out to be Satan. I mean, we're presented so horribly across the world and as stupid and everything else, and then this whole scandal just helped add to that. Do you think it will actually come to thermonuclear warfare?
I believe, as I outline in my book, I do not believe in airborne nuclear war.
Really?
I do not believe that there's any evidence of any bombs dropping and bursting in midair, and I go into this, what happened at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that I believe that what was done was magnesium flash bombs were dropped. The one at Hiroshima was laced with uranium, and the one at Nagasaki, a slug of plutonium was put in there to make it look like it was a nuclear detonation in an airburst. But the facts were that Pedro Arrupi was there at Hiroshima. His Jesuits were there at Ground Zero. They had assembled a nuclear device there after FDR had given Stalin all the necessary ingredients to make a bomb. And of course, FDR and Stalin were working together in '43. And so, along with Hirohito, they're all Freemasons. And so they give all these nuclear components to the Jesuits in Japan, and they, with their physicists, assemble these devices, one at Hiroshima, one at Nagasaki. So when the flash bombs are dropped by Curtis LeMay, that Freemason, with the B-29s, the flash bomb goes off, and the Jesuits on the ground, then when the flash goes off, they detonate their device. Huh. And it just so happened that 5 Jesuits surfaced from Ground Zero at Hiroshima after the detonation, unscathed, unhurt, and they attributed it to a miracle of the Virgin Mary.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I outline in my book that there's no real evidence of airborne nuclear war, especially at the time Knight of Malta Henry Luce began to spread this airborne nuclear war dogma immediately after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and thus justifying the creation of the United Nations.
Right.
What I do teach is that these nuclear devices, of course they can be detonated. We obviously have seen that many times, but they're detonated on the ground at a specific time when the sun is in the right harmonic relationship to the earth, because the sun revolves around the earth in a corkscrew up and down fashion. The earth does not spin on its axis, and it does not revolve around the sun.
Wow.
So with that understanding, with the sun in the right harmonic relationship to the device where it's been placed, then it can be detonated, and not until then.
Wow. So all of the ideas that we get from NASA, which I know are fully occult, I'm well aware of Jack Parsons and some of the other nefarious dealings with NASA and the Nazis. So they're presenting to us this world view of a solar-centric, heliocentric universe, and of course we can't say anything because we're not going into space.
Yeah, well, there were 5 experiments in the late 1800s, the turn of the 20th century, that proved the Earth was at rest. One of those experiments was the Michelson and Morley experiment. There were 4 others. But Einstein, one of the Pope's court Jews, and his theory of relativity and his heliocentricity, did everything he could to thwart those discoveries that were being made public. And so we had to be brainwashed into believing in heliocentricity, because if we believed in geocentricity, that would open up a whole new class of physics that we are to be kept ignorant of. And one of those class of physics is harmonics and the relation of the sun to the earth, which is absolutely necessary in understanding how to detonate a nuclear device with the beryllium trigger. So no, they keep us all in the dark. They control the patent office in Washington, and anybody who comes along with a quote-unquote perpetual motion machine or electromagnetic machines or a gyroscopic machine that is able to be anti-gravity or